What percentage of the budget is ASUU asking for? Even Buhari, as backward as most people think he is, he sent all his kids to the UK to go to school because he knows the value of education. Social media don't necessarily translate to votes. How can you have personal grievance against somebody that you have helped several times?
You have helped?
Yes. You want to hear it?
Mr. Omoyele Sowore, thank you for making our time to be with us on The Exclusive today.
Thank you for bringing me.
All right, sir. Before we get into the crux of the discussion, talking about your presidential ambition and basically the happenings, particularly vis-a-vis the elections, let us know your overview, more or less your scorecard of the current administration in the past 8 to 7 years.
You know, I taught classes in the U.S. as an adjunct professor for 8 or more solid years. And there are parameters for scoring performances. And I have not seen any that fits into a grading context as far as this admin is concerned. And how do you judge an administration? You judge them based on the promises that they make, they would accomplish when they get to office. In their own case, they were modest. They asked to do only 3 things: to secure the country, to fight corruption, and also bring about economic progress. Let's start with economic progress. How do you determine economic progress in a country? You start with macroeconomics, and currency is one of them. If you came into office and the naira of currency was 200 naira to $1, and 7 years later, it's $700, and so 700 naira to $1, you have failed completely. In the area of corruption, if you came to office and there were mass corruption all over the place, and by the time 7 years, you are accountant general, who is supposed to monitor how money is spent and ensure that they are accounted for, has stolen 190 billion naira by himself alone. We are not talking about his collaborators. And there are indicators that members of your family, cronies, and associates have been involved in mass corruption. You have also failed in that sector. The third and the last one is security. You came in as president of Nigeria or a new administration, and you met Boko Haram. 7 years later, you have lost part of the territory of the country, including your home state, to new non-state criminal gangs that you call bandits. And Boko Haram has now spread to every part of the country to the point that they can make open declaration that they want to kidnap the president of the country. You have also failed. So I score the administration having established and explained to you contextually and directly 0. If there's anything less than 0, I would have put it there.
I want to pick
and
out
I'll ask
okay.
as a teacher that such a student do not come to my class again.
Okay, I'd like to pick out corruption.
Yes.
I mean, you would want to look at the efforts of the EFCC.
EFCC?
Yes, the EFCC.
Yes.
Even the Accountant General was actually, I mean, it was exposed, the case is still on. And I mean, it takes some level of, well, I say, courage and commitment to even expose people within your cabinet if they are corrupt. Won't you also want to give some level of credence to that fight?
No. The EFCC probably was aware that the Accountant General was stealing. You see, when you want to fight corruption, you just don't wait until the deed has been done. It's a failure on the part of the EFCC that they did not detect for 7 years that massive amount of looting in the office of the Accountant General. And to show their complicity, look at how quickly he was rushed into detention, and I hear he's back now. Maybe next he will be a governorship candidate or the ambassador of Nigeria to somewhere, who knows? So that's, the EFCC part is a joke. That's just what I want to tell you. Getting people arrested after the fact and making a show of it is not fighting corruption.
Let's look at security.
Yes.
Yes, the issues are staring us in the face. We hear of attacks and all. But wouldn't you also want to say in terms of the efforts to, these insurgents keep coming up with innovative ways to get strategic. Wouldn't you want to say it's not just a problem that they created, they also inherited it. So you might not entirely want to fault them on that one too.
That is why people in the first place voted for the so-called change in 2015, because they promised everybody, we know Boko Haram. This is a former general there. He'll run them out of town. But I'm telling you that, do you know how many kids, school kids, both in primary, secondary, and university, that are in captivity? Did you not know that these people just go into schools and scoop children out of the place? It got to a point where bandits were emboldened enough to capture a moving train. Even in English parables, they say don't stand in front of a moving train. The bandits did and survived. This is the only place in the world where that ever happened. So it tells you the depth of the hopelessness, but it was driven by incompetence and the fact that the government was a fraud in saying that this regime was a fraud, but he's saying that they were going to fight corruption. They had no plan in place. They just scammed the Nigerian people into voting for them in office. Nothing else shows the depth of our insecurity than terrorists laying siege on Abuja and actually killing senior military officials inside the Federal Capital Territory a few weeks ago and threatening openly that they will one day capture the president. In fact, there was a time the president was supposed to go home. The government had to go buy a shoulder-fired ammo back from bandits so that they won't shoot down the presidential plane on his way back home. Though they denied it, but we have credible evidence and information that was true. So we are just at this point without, you have a military that's without generals, competent generals. Your commander-in-chief of the armed forces has failed, completely failed. So there is nothing to discuss about progress. There's nothing around to show that we have made any progress in fighting insecurity. If all of this could happen, everybody is practically on their own now, without any security cover, pretty much, including those who are saddled with the responsibility to secure us. They themselves are insecure and unsafe.
So what do you think is the problem? What do you think is that one thing they are not doing right in terms of security?
Well, they are doing everything wrong. And I say this because security is just not an isolated case of a string of incidents. They have root causes. They are rooted in inequality, lack of investment in education, economic opportunities, that are not available, unemployment. So in addressing security, you must address those holistically. But you must also address immediately competence of officers, training, motivation, compensation, insurance for people who are risking their lives, collection of intelligence, sharing of intelligence, actionable activities on the part of intelligence and the security agencies, collaborating to ensure that so many of the issues that are happening don't even take place in the first place, and properly situating security agencies and forces to the roles they're supposed to play. I mean, we got to the point where the army is controlling traffic on the streets of Nigeria. They have no business. The police has abandoned that role. They are doing VIP guard work for the rich and the VVIPs. All these are some of the symptoms. But fundamentally, the reason we are in the situation we are in is how we mismanage the opportunities that we've had when we had money. Schools that we could have built, roads that we could have built.
When we had money.
Well, when we had free oil money flowing into our coffers.
So right now?
We don't. We do, but we're bankrupted the system. Because it's when you invest, it regenerates over time. But you just have a few people sharing the money amongst themselves and taking care of themselves. So they've abandoned your schools in favor of their children going to school abroad. So to train a child in a UK university, you have to spend the money meant for 1,000 kids in a Nigerian university. But they prefer that, to get treated, to treat the president of Nigeria in the UK, you have to pay 5,000 euros to park his jet first per night.
Per night?
Yes. And probably another 5,000 pounds for treatment per night, because it's not going to be placed in the general section of the hospital. It's going to be in the 5-star or 7-star department of the hospital. There has to be, his information has to be kept secret. You pay for all of that. And then food, his detail that follows him, on a nightly basis, you're probably spending almost 15,000 pounds. And if you multiply that by the cost of the naira to a pound, you imagine how that could build a ward in some hospitals in Nigeria.
All right.
And if you multiply that by the number of the time the president was out of the hospital in 1 year alone, which was 140 days that we calculated, you will see the damages people have done to your country by being reckless, irresponsible, and dishonest.
All right, let's tone it down to the season we are in, the elections.
Yes.
We've talked extensively, or you talked extensively on insecurity.
Yes.
Right now. And then we understand that the body, that's INEC, is introducing some ideas, fresh ideas, electronic transmission of votes and all of that. Looking at INEC's capacity to be able to organize credible elections in 2023, vis-a-vis all of our current realities, do you think INEC has what it takes to deliver to Nigerians a credible election?
You have to look at all of the components of what INEC is about. One of the things an electoral umpire must have is complete independence. If the president is a appointer of the INEC chairman, independence is compromised. But let's even not talk about that, because we are already in the middle of one. What about the officers of INEC that are appointed now, that are card-carrying member of one of the major political parties, the ruling party? How do you expect them to conduct or oversee free and fair elections? Those things are impossible. And then you then think about what powers do they have to even enforce their laws? Because there's been inconsistency. At the point they said there will be electronic transmission of results, now they said it's manual. Then after there was an uproar, they said we're going back to electronics. But they're not as simple as that. Why I say so is that even if you are transmitting a result as it is now, because people are confusing electronic transmission of results with electronic voting, it is what the presiding officer puts there that can be transmitted. So if you rig the election at the polling unit, you transmit a rigged outcome. So we need to, by now, have gone to electronic voting. Another major problem is the issue of where you vote, your location. The moment you have a voter's card, you should be able to vote anywhere in the country, so that would encourage more people to participate in these elections. So, for me, my answer is no, I don't trust INEC. I don't think they have the capability to conduct free and fair elections. Before you ask your next question, look at the series of elections they conducted after 2019. Look at
they recently did that of Osun State, and it was a smooth sailing. We've seen some other elections across states, and I mean, it was largely the reflection of the people's choice.
No. Osun was see and buy now. You know what they call see and buy?
Please explain.
You go and pay people to vote for you. That's not election. I understand that some people think that's an improvement because the system also makes you feel comfortable sometimes. You know, when they cheat you once, then they let you have a little bit of leeway. And so that gives you a sense of fairness in the system. But if we are going to talk about elections, there is no cutting corners about them. You have to have free and fair elections for the elections to be credible and acceptable to the generality of voters. We're not talking about free and fair elections that are based on how you think the people feel. It has to be votes counted after voting has been concluded, counted right, announced right. You have an election in a country where the number 4 person who participated in the election and was number 4 became a governor. So you also should not forget that elections do not end with INEC. It also involves the judiciary. And in my view, there should be no reason why a judge should participate in determining the winner of an election if the election is credible enough.
All right. So, I mean, if you feel that INEC would not deliver credible elections, then why are you in the race? I
don't give up simply because things don't work. Sometimes some of us get involved in these races because they need us to straighten people up so that the people will get the outcomes that they want. This is the reason we explore the options to get to the final destination, because our own strategy is to engage in peaceful, non-violent outcomes. And sometimes we are there to show to you the contradictions so that next time when we come and talk to you, you'll believe us that we need a revolution.
This is about, if I'm not mistaken, your third attempt? Second
yes.
attempt. Sorry, apologies. Your second attempt. Yes. What has kept you going?
You know, I'm the kind of person that doesn't give up hope, even though I don't like the word hope, because it seems to me like an opium. You know, you just feed people with hope, and they remain perpetually bloated with an expectation that will not come, and it also has a way of slowing them down. But it is at the point that you give up that you lose out. You know, there's this common saying that winners don't quit, and quitters don't win. I'm not a quitter. So,
all right. Let's move away from the elections. Let's talk about another prevailing issue, which is the ASUU strike.
Yes.
Students have been away from school. Students in public universities away from school for about 6 going to 7 months right now. And there's been a lot of talks, you know, back and forth. This is not the first time we are having extended strike action, you know, across the country. I mean, what would you, just saying, should you be commander-in-chief, what would you do different, or what are they not getting right over the years?
What I've not been getting right is that we don't have people who are in position of authority or power, you know, either elected or appointed, who are interested in education. The last time I noticed that anybody was remotely interested in education was when I was 9, 10 years old. And I benefited from free education. I was a little kid, and I was excited about going to, I was so excited about going to school that I was one of the people that built my secondary school before we moved in 1980. Free education. When we finished school and they equipped it with desks, some of the desks are still there. The 1980 desks today. And they had louvers, as we call them, those, you know, partitioned windows. Everybody came out of their woodworks to come to school. Even though the schools, by my own standards, could be described as poultries. You know, the same thing with Lagos. Lagos built poultries and called them schools here. But people went to school. And it's the same, that massive education of the 80s and 90s that produced even some of the crop of people that are running Nigeria today. But when it was their turn, they shut down the system against the rest. It's just like you were allowed into a hall, with doors wide open. And you got into the hall and only a few of you are there. We're supposed to be a big theater. And you went back and locked the door against the others. That's what they did. And what did they start doing? The money meant for education that misappropriated or converted to personal use. So, to answer your question, funding is a major issue. You have to have an education policy that is solid, that says, we are educating kids from the time they leave their mom's belly. Well, probably not immediately. But in my view, I think in advanced countries, they start right there because you can't leave hospital in the US after you have a baby without immunizing the baby. So they are preparing the baby for the future already. The mom is taught how to, take care of the baby until they can talk. And what to look out for if there are disabilities or signs of slowness in baby growth and all that. And then the baby is introduced to the world, kindergarten, and then, they are sent to primary school. We start taking care of them from that stage. In our own case, nobody wants to do that for the majority anymore. So money is meant for training 1,000 kids who will be sent to a child to go to the UK. Even Buhari, the current president, as backward as most people think he is, he sent all his kids to the UK to go to school because he knows the value of education for his younger one. These other people, they do because they actually invest in their own families, but they don't care about public education. And public education is very key. Mass education is very important.
So are you saying the fault is more with the government than even the association? Because they are...
Associations have been around.
Some of the opinion that their request is,
what are you talking about? What's their request? What's their request? They're asking for you to invest in education, asking for you to, build good libraries, laboratories, asking for you to build hostels for students to, provide books, provide modern technology for going to school. How's that too much to ask for? Considering that a band of terrorists that abducted people from a train going to Kaduna in the last few weeks, I've already collected over 3 billion naira from the federal government, and I've not released all of them. Which one is better? Is it better to be an ASUU unionist or a bandit? And you negotiate with them, right? We send people to them to negotiate with them. ASUU, you say that they're asking for too much. What percentage of the budget is ASUU asking for? Didn't you mention that? Didn't we talk about the Accountant General just now? Only one Accountant General of the Federation took 150 billion. Officially, I'm sure he stole more than that. What is ASUU asking? Vasco is asking for at this point to resume. They're asking for 200 billion. When we were in school at the University of Lagos, they were asking for 3 billion. They refused to give them. But there was a time that Babangida stole over, I think it's $12 billion of oil windfall. At the time that ASUU was asking $12 billion, they were asking for 3 billion naira. They were blackmailing them that they are greedy, they're asking for too much. Babangida, during the oil Gulf War, I think it was 1990, between 1990 and 91, I'm not sure now, when there was a crisis in Iraq and oil prices went up, he stole $12 billion. Abacha, we are still getting money from his ATM. He left in 1990. I think he died in 1998. They are still sending us repatriating funds. Had we spent the money in 1998 that he stole in developing our universities, we have some of the best universities today on the continent of Africa, if not the world.
Do you think it's...
But he too was accusing ASUU of sabotage. In fact, I think he tried to arrest ASUU leaders during his time. There's not been a year that we didn't budget for all these institutions in our budget. The question is what happens to those funds? But most importantly, what needs to be sustained is more important than how they think they should be sustained. And this might sound like something vague, but I'm saying that in the order of priority, sustaining public education, mass education is more important than, trying to tinker with anything that needs to be done to move funds to fund education must be done. If we need to cut back on the amount of persons that are in our parliament doing nothing, in which I had proposed that they should just get rid of the Senate and put the money in the educational sector. Because this one has a coven of thieves. It's a retirement home, so people are spending too much money anywhere who don't have motivation to go to work.
What's your take on true federalism?
True federalism is not being practiced here. My take on it is that for you to practice true federalism in Nigeria, you have to get rid of an ambiguous constitution that doesn't even define what we are practicing to the 1999 constitution. It wasn't made for the people. I have said it openly, I repeat it here, the constitution of 1999 was a fraudulent document imposed on the Nigerian people. It is that document that is making Nigeria into all kinds of amoeboid nationhood or country. Instead of the people to make the constitution is remaking them, and we're complaining. So we go after the constitution, sit down and say, what do we want to run? Put it in the constitution and make sure it is implemented fully.
All right. You're one of the presidential candidates running. What stands you out, your person out in the race? And also, what are those things you would introduce or do differently to better Nigerians and the Nigerian state?
I think one of the major things is my years of service to the humanity of Nigeria, my country, consistency, character, integrity. I would say much on the lane where I operate, competence, and most importantly, my understanding of the Nigerian nation, having been part of its history, its movement, in the journey towards nationhood for 30 decades. Out of my 5 decades on earth, nobody in a presidential race now can really boast of that, and I know they don't want to hear that. So I have an understanding of the problems. I've participated in providing solutions whenever it is needed, without getting paid for it.
Okay, what are some of the solutions?
Well, when I was young, what was Nigeria's most important need? Democracy. That's what we are enjoying today. I participated until we got to 10 years between 1989 and 1999. That's how we came about democracy. We fought for it, we went to jail for it, we got persecuted. And when it was over, we had what we can call democracy. Don't ask me if our democracy is the real one, because we'll stay here till tomorrow. But at least, and then subsequent efforts to stabilize, consolidate Nigeria's hold on democracy is everything I participated in, either through advocacy, media, education, diaspora participation, because at the point I traveled abroad, so I became an investor in Nigeria through remittances. I was sending my own Western Union to keep Nigeria going. So all of this is what are important components of who I represent and who I am.
Okay.
Yes.
What would you do concerning, let me streamline it to just the economy and security. What would you do should you be president?
So our economy needs massive investment in people, in infrastructure. That's what we're talking about education now, in growing our agricultural sector, in power, energy, because people come all the time and say, I want to industrialize Nigeria, I want to produce. There's no non-industrial revolution that happened anywhere in the world in which energy was not the first major component of it. When there was need for transportation, revolution, the steam engine, right, was invented. That's what carried everybody around the world, and they colonized the world, they stole slaves, when there were further needs for the use of power. Technology, energy was part of it. It wasn't until there was a nuclear energy that one of the world wars, the Second World War, was conducted and defeated. A major nuclear bomb had to be dropped before everybody stopped that war.
How about
That
security?
was power of energy. Security, 3 stages. You have to immediately stop the bleeding, and that is that if necessary, you deploy all the emergency needs, including, I've said, not proud of it, bringing in mercenaries to end.
You're bringing mercenaries?
Yes, the Nigerian army or the Nigerian security itself is a mercenary anyways. But like I said, it's a controversial position that I like to expatiate on. It will be for a short period so that we can curb all the flashpoints. And then subsequently after that, you have to develop your own internal security capacity to deal with threats as they emerge, collect intelligence, share it, actionable intelligence in particular, motivate, train, obtain weaponry to use. But ultimately, it is social security that will solve the problem.
Which is?
You cannot leave 20 million kids out of school and expect to reap security in the future. You have to invest in education. You cannot have half of your young people out of college without employment and expect security. You are wasting your time. Every country that is relatively peaceful have invested in economic and social security policies, such that even people who cannot work can at least draw some kind of support from the system at your moment of weakness, or people who are retired, or people who have special needs, people who are challenged physically, mentally. Everybody ought to find some kind of social security cover in the system for you to enjoy. I won't say absolute security or peace, but a good measure of security. So that's the most important security investment that will end all of it.
Which is social security, according to you. Yeah. All right, I want to ask your opinion concerning some of your fellow contestants in the presidential race.
Yes.
So the person of Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu of the APC, that's the All Progressive Congress. What's your take?
Is it the race? No, I don't take them serious. I think that anybody who's been part of the problems confronting Nigeria, anybody who's participated in the last 23 years in office, especially those who did 2 terms in office as governors, VP, should step down immediately and ask for forgiveness.
They should step down and ask for forgiveness?
Yes.
Why is that?
Because they failed miserably, we should take them to a Truth and Reconciliation Committee so that they can come and confess. We entertain ourselves with their frailties, forgive them and tell them never to go near public office.
But some have said you also, have some sort of ties with the old system.
So people lie against me all the time. If I have ties, how is it difficult to find Europe? Is it so much hidden that you can't find if I've ever been in touch with Tinubu or Atiku? It's not, never. They themselves know that I have no ties. It is the reason I get into trouble all the time with them. Who would think that anybody in Nigeria will go to jail as of 2019 for calling for mass action?
So you've never in the past supported being paid by any of them?
No, never. You are a journalist. I keep challenging you people. If you find it, show it to the people. Don't even ask me. This is the receipt. I saw Tinubu and Sowore drinking Ijebu Gari in his house. Never been to his house, but I don't even know where he lives. But they pointed to me when I'm going to Lagos. They call the place Bodilon. I think it's the most notorious address in Lagos.
How about Atiku?
Never. I met Atiku before in his house in Potomac. One mansion that he that he bought with Nigerian money to interview him. Shortly after I interviewed him, did a report on and the place was raided by I don't think it was raided, but it was linked with corruption. He ran away. Now he has sold the mansion. Mention another one.
Of course, the third force right now is Peter Obi.
Where did you guys take the decision that it's third force?
Well,
yes. Tell me.
It's all over the place.
No,
we have the obedience right now. It's a movement.
Which movement? That's contrived movement.
Contrived?
Yes.
Online or offline?
Wherever it is, it's contrived. And it's in order. In election circles, people call themselves all kinds of names. There was a time in this country, right, where we used to walk around with our pants without no belt. They call us Malians. It's a movement, you know. Now, you rarely find a Malian. They're all in the museum.
Do you have personal grievance against Peter Obi?
You guys say all the time, but I answer it this way. How can you have personal grievance against somebody that you have helped several times?
You have helped?
Yes. You want to hear it?
Please.
First time, when he was governor, he was two-term governor in Anambra State, and President Olusegun Obasanjo at that time was president. He won his election. They impeached him. Did an election while the case was still in court. Another governor, Andy Uba, who was Obasanjo's personal assistant, special assistant, was imposed on the state. He won the election. And they wanted to get the Supreme Court to give a judgment in support, to consolidate Uba's illegal governorship. We got hold of the information that they bribed the Supreme Court justice in Dubai. We did a story of our reporters. They couldn't deliver the judgment in favor of Uba. Obi was restated. That's how he completed his tenure. I did that. Most recently, when he went to the Labour Party, you know, he was in the Labour Party for less than 2 weeks before they organized their kangaroo presidential primaries. There was a faction of the Labour Party that took him to court. Most people didn't know. We also had a legal case in the Court of Appeal, which we won on June the 2nd. So I was reached, you know, Barrister Femi Falana, who is my attorney, was also the lawyer to the Labour Party and this factional affair. He reached out to me in the middle of the night and said, "Did you get that copy of the judgment that showed that a judge should never have intervened in factional matters of party?" And I said, "I have." He said, "Can you send it to me? I want to use it to defend Peter Obi." And I sent it to him in the middle of the night. He went and presented it in court, and Peter Obi won against a faction that might have kicked him out of the presidential race.
So are you?
So if I have any beef against him,
exactly,
why would I use my own personal time, resources, energy, and my courage to get him justice at these crucial junctions? And this is somebody that I've only met him once.
Okay.
And there was no time that I had any other interaction. Just like other Nigerian presidential candidates, I have no interaction with him.
Okay.
But just in addition to that, even in 2018 when I was running for the first time, he called me on the phone and from nowhere said, "You know, I'm running with Atiku. Can you support us? We are looking for money." I said, "Light and darkness can never meet."
Peter Obi called you
yes.
when he was vice president to Atiku.
When he was a vice presidential candidate to Atiku in 2018.
Oh.
So I'm just giving you
I was asking for your support. Then.
Yes, for Atiku. And I was running too at that time.
Oh.
And I said, "You know, I'm better than you both. Why would you be calling me to support a corrupt ticket?" And
okay,
said,
because...
And he hung up. And that was the last time I ever heard from him.
Because, I mean, what some of the speculation is that probably because since he emerged as the running presidential candidate of the Labour Party,
yes.
he has had massive buying, particularly of young people. And maybe because, I mean, you might feel that he might have watered down your influence or, you know, political relevance, particularly with the young people.
No.
Maybe that's why you have...
Political relevance in any society is not determined by euphoria. You understand? The most relevant politician in Nigeria, in the southwestern part, never won the presidency of Nigeria.
So you don't feel threatened you don't feel threatened by his candidacy?
No, I have said that openly. Why would I be threatened when we are in a competition that is still 5 months away? We have not debated. He hasn't even spoken about his ideas. I'm pushing my ideas. What I find very interesting is that people are already afraid of people who might challenge him as a candidate because of the shallowness. I think they've seen the shallowness around his ideas, because he doesn't even have a manifesto. And they don't want him to be criticized. Are you trying to run in one-party state in an election? Anybody can criticize anybody. On the other hand, his people, you know, they criticize other candidates, you know. They have people who are permanently looking into records of other candidates, publishing them, which is great because you are exposing the public to adequate information about how to make the right decisions and choices. In this coming election, the election is a very important decision for a country. So it cannot be reduced to, oh, don't criticize my candidate. But you're afraid to criticize other people. Maybe we're also learning a hard way that our politics has come of age. Because if you lived in the US, nobody will ever ask anybody on camera that, why are you criticizing my candidate? Because that's what candidates do. They criticize themselves so that they can win your trust, your support, and your respect.
Do you still think you have that political influence come this 2023 elections?
I'm presenting myself to the public. That relevance is going to be determined by the public. It cannot be contrived. Are you getting my point? You have seen it several times that some candidates can be popular in parts of the country, sections of in the political spectrum, and they may not be popular in other places. And that social media don't necessarily translate to votes. When Donald Trump was running in the US, if he sent a tweet, it was, I think he had about 100 million followers on Twitter. At the end, he didn't win the election because people were turned off by his messaging. They didn't follow him anymore, and the strategy he thought he could use didn't work. So when you talk about political relevance, what I'm asking you guys in the media to do is give everybody a chance who is running to espouse their ideas and let the public listen to them and decide. Don't go harassing other candidates and say, oh, youths have already decided for somebody. Where was the meeting held that the youths decided to follow a candidate? Are there no northern youths? Are there no southern youths? Are there no youths who are not on social media? Are there no youths who don't even have access to phones, Okada riders, taxi drivers, people who are working in different places? But, I understand the strategy. It's a PR strategy. In military terminologies, they call shock and awe. You just wake up, you tell somebody who you want to fight against that you have already defeated them because you have air power. But war is not won by air power alone. Otherwise, America would have rolled over Afghanistan and Iraq. But do you know what happened after all their jets and all those nice things you watch in movies? When they got to grand fight, it became a little bit bloodier than they thought.
All right. Before I allow you go, I remember about 2018, thereabout, when we had a conversation.
Yes.
Your position on marijuana.
Yes.
Back then, you said you support it. You think it's an economic booster. You even said you plant it in the State House.
Yes.
Do you still maintain that position?
Absolutely. Symbolically, I'll plant it in the State House.
Marijuana?
Yes. It's the most important economic plant today, more important than even cocoa. It fetched Canada $4 billion every year. The one city in the US, Colorado, I think Boulder somewhere, makes $1 billion from distribution of marijuana products. Marijuana has so many medicinal uses, you yourself can't believe it. And guess what? I've never tried it before.
So why do you have so much belief in it?
Because I'm a person of science, and I have enough clairvoyance to know where the future is going to be headed. Do you know my regrets about all this conversation? Between the time I spoke to you about marijuana and now, more than 35 countries have adopted policies on marijuana, and it's changing their economies. My state governor carried money, went to Malaysia to go and learn how to refine marijuana. I was sitting in a hotel here in Abuja. I said, you should have come to me, I'll teach you. No need to go to. And he came back and tried to do it. But because they don't have an idea of how to do these things, they can't do it. Several members of the House of Reps have now drafted laws to legitimize or legalize marijuana because they know the economic value. Very soon it has become a global product, and they will tell you that the one that you are growing in Nigeria is inferior. As a result, you can't sell it in the international market. Meanwhile, our cannabis from my state, those states, Delta State, I think parts of Ekiti State, is been said to be the best for those who do wee-wee. That's the general sniffing of it. But that's not the one I'm talking about. It's the economic and medicinal value that I'm interested in. And that you can imagine if Ondo State is making $200 million from marijuana every year, they won't need to be queuing up for oil money. And marijuana has become gold. It's the truth. You can do your research. You know, people should be apologizing to me 4 years after for having, introduced a very brilliant novel idea into how we could have improved parts of our economy. Because we need to divest from oil. Oil is going out of business itself. It may not happen immediately, but very soon, most cars will no longer be driven with, fossil fuel.
All right. Just quickly, why should Nigerians opt for a Sowore candidacy come 2023?
I don't see anything better than this idea. Now, this is just something that I think should naturally occur to people who have seen series of failed leaders. For somebody who has lived his life transparently for 32 years out of my 51 years on earth, I've done incredibly well for my causes. I believe in my country, and who have done a good job of explaining and breaking down governance, in a way that you can call it ABC. One thing I will leave you with is that Nigerian leaders like to tell people that Nigeria is very complex, so that they will scare you from understanding that it's easy to do very simple things. But what I say all the time, repeatedly, is that if Nigeria is so complex to run, why is it so easy to steal from Nigeria? So, it's the easiest place to become a billionaire by stealing government money. Countries that are complex to run, their first most complex place is their purse, their economic treasury, their treasuries. But here, any bozo can become a governor. Next thing, he's the richest person on earth. And then when you ask him, what's happening in your state? Oh, it's complex. It's really complex. It's complex. What's complex in building schools? When a governor within 4 years can build a mansion that is equivalent to sometimes 60 schools. I lived in Abuja for 4 years, restricted to Abuja. And when I walk in past some houses and they say it's owned by a governor, you'll be blown away. Are you getting my point? So people have been churching for so long, I understand. It's difficult to understand that people like me, I don't have horns on my head, I don't have a private jet, I don't live in a mansion. You just can't understand that. How do we vote for this guy, even though he has the ideas? Because we are used to voting for those who fail us. And we've gotten accustomed and conditioned to that, and I hope I'm able to break that course.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for bringing me.